Welcome to the New Road Conversation. Thank you all for being here today. So I'm joined by Ethan Hooker and our co-founders, Paul Fouché and Garth Nash. Thank you so much for being here. So these three individuals are very different on paper. We have one that competes on the biggest rugby stages in the world, while the other two have spent years building their investment business from the ground up. But I think the more time that we've all spent together, the more we've realized that there's far more similarities than differences between all of us. So this isn't really a conversation about rugby or investing. It's a conversation more so about ambition, discipline, pressure and sacrifice. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So Garth, let's start with you. What's something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Yeah, so I think maybe something people don't know about me is I'm labeled as an extrovert, but I'm actually quite introverted. A lot of people look at people in business, you go and they say, okay, you're dealing with people or you've got a skill set and you enjoy working, with big teams and meeting new people. But it often doesn't refer to your ability or your skill set, but also refers to where you get energy from. So something a lot of people don't actually realize is majority of my day is actually spent, quite isolated. I'm running to different meetings with different sects of people and like that. So I think that's something that I think only the people closest to me really know. I love my alone time. When I'm out there, I'm on. I think that's with a lot of people, and when you're not, you're not.
Where would you say that you actually get your energy from and recharge, like you said?
I think it's from family. I'm very family orientated, and believe it or not, spending time with my 4-year-old son, who's the busiest person on the planet. I've often got a saying, children make you, physically tired, but emotionally strong. It can be both ways also. Sometimes it's, so you can question that you have your days for you at the end of it. But I think I definitely recharge, spending time alone with my son and my wife on the golf course with the golf cart, just the three of us. Just those alone times. We're watching a movie together, and it's these days Disney movies and things like that. Moana, and I'm not going to get into the rest. But so I think that's for me, I would define as a recharge.
Okay, Paul, same question to you. What's something that people would never guess about you?
I think probably the fact that I'm so affectionate. So I like to hug my family. I like to hug my friends. I like to rough house with my kids. Obviously at work I'm quite analytical. My job requires me to be quite analytical, and sometimes that comes across as come across as a bit colder. But I'm actually a very affectionate person behind closed doors. And as I say, and just at home.
Now on to you, Ethan. What would teammates never expect from you?
I think for me, what they wouldn't really expect is that I'm not the biggest drinker. I know in rugby, the drinking culture is huge, being with all the boys, having a good time. I'm all for it. I'll be there every single step of the way. I'm the first one to put my hand up on a night out or a brow with the boys, but don't put a drink in my hand. I do really hate it. There's special occasions where I'll drink, like maybe at bachelor's or something like that, but I wouldn't say I enjoy it. I'm just there more for the gears. I'm gonna have just as much fun as everyone else, but like I said, round of golf or anything like that, I'm there with all the boys. If the girls wanna come, I'm all for it, but just drinking is not my forte.
It's funny how what people don't actually see is the stuff that shapes us the most,
Yeah.
So Paul, I'm going to start with you on this question. What was your biggest dream as a kid?
I actually had quite a few dreams as a kid. I actually originally wanted to be an Olympic athlete, believe it or not, on the track. So I always grew up, my dad kind of loving track and field, loving endurance sports. I was quite a good runner when I was younger, and that was a dream for me to be an Olympic athlete. And I've always been quite adventurous as well. So I actually wanted to be an astronaut for a long time, and then I realized coming from South Africa that would be a little bit more difficult. And then also a professional adventurer for a while as well. So I actually did some adventure, sort of climbing mountains and things when I was younger, but realized I think rather make it a hobby than a profession was kind of what I worked out. But those I would say were my 3 biggest dreams as a kid.
So Ethan, what was your biggest dream as a kid?
So I actually don't want to steal the spotlight from you, but for a long time I also wanted to be in the Olympics. I was huge into my athletics, especially the 100, 200 meters. I would say from about 10 to 13 years old. That was all I did every single day. It was just athletics, and then I sort of got bored of the individual sports. I preferred my team sports and stuff. So then from about high school onwards, it was more about rugby, and then because it was more a team sport, I more enjoyed being with all the boys and the gears and stuff. So then from about 14 years old, it was just being a Springbok, and that's literally all I can remember.
That's amazing, and look where you are today.
It's funny how it works out.
So yeah, my dreams have actually kind of evolved over time. You know, my youngest, when I was small, I think chef, you know, something I really enjoyed. And then my first dream, my parents always told me, is I actually want to become a doctor, but I've got quite an affiliation to germs. And then I realized that doctors work with sick people, and so that quickly bottled out. And for to be honest, from about 11 years old, 10 years old, I actually wanted to be in investments. I read a book by Ray Magliolo. It was probably about 11 years old, Becoming Your Own Stockbroker. It was actually a financial advisor that a friend of my dad's that recommended the book. I went and I read it, and I wrote him an email back then. Emails had just come out, and he actually responded back to me, and he sent me a copy of a book. And ever since then, I wanted to be investments right through high school, right through varsity, and I don't know how I was going to land up there, but somehow it's just all worked out.
That's amazing. So Paul, did you ever play rugby growing up?
Mikayla, my rugby career, I can't say is star-studded. I did play for 1 season in high school as a wing, and the only reason they put me on the field is because I was quite fast from track. They decided to give me a ball, but it didn't work out. As you can see, I'm not sitting here as a Springbok, so it didn't work out too well. But I would say the extent of my career was 1 season in high school.
Awesome. And Garth, did you ever play rugby?
No. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to be that cliche guy to say, you know what, I would have had the career if it was for that one injury. But lucky enough, to use the excuse, when I was super young, I actually hurt my neck playing rugby, believe it or not, in grade 2 or 3. I can't remember which one. I fell into a rugby post, but I was never a talented rugby player, so definitely wasn't the reason, but we can claim it. No, kidding. So never played rugby. I went more in my school career towards the hockey side, it's nothing that I actually played.
We all have moments in life where we are pulled towards a particular path, and sometimes we know exactly what that is, but sometimes we don't know until we actually look back on it and realize. So Garth, before New Road existed, what was actually driving you back then?
You know, I mean, just to be dead honest with you, is when you're younger, I think a lot of drive is, you're going through things it's when you look at yourself in the future and you're driven, I wouldn't only say selfish, but it's very, as a young child, I mean, I said in my son as well, everything's me, so I think when I was younger, a lot of the drive was maybe ego-driven, and it's, sad to say, or image-driven or things like that. You see a version of yourself that you want yourself to be, and it's always looking at you, and one of the things I've realized, that motivation is more external, that drive is always what other people think, so drive is, for me, when I was younger, was massively external. It can be a drive for reassurance, it can be a drive for love, it can be a drive, you're trying to find things externally. And I think as I've got older, that drive has almost morphed, because you actually realize it becomes more internal, and I think that's been one of the cool things, to see how drive changes over time. You're not looking for it out there. You realize actually it's something that comes within, and also accepting yourself and having a better relationship with yourself. So I think, drive-wise, definitely I'd say externally driven from people looking in, and as we've got older, it's become more internally driven, and what do I feel about me and where I'm at, and so more introspection.
Yes, well, that's amazing. And I think not every journey follows a straight line, and some of the most interesting careers start from a completely different path. So Paul, on to you. You started as a chemical engineer. That's a very different world to running a fund. So what pulled you away from that path?
Mikayla, so I think maybe to reiterate on what Garth was saying, when you're younger, I was always quite strong academically. I love math, I love science. I still love those. I find them, personally, just they're great interests that I pursue as an amateur. You don't really know what you want to do necessarily when you start out. So my father was an engineer, so I thought, to be honest, so I thought I was always going to be an engineer, but I thought chemical engineering sounded the coolest. And then studied that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I worked as an engineer for a few years, but it really wasn't, and I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur as well. My father also being an entrepreneur, get a lot of sort of advice and guidance in life through your parents. And I thought, from pretty much my first paycheck, I was investing, and I liked the math behind it, and I liked sort of the science behind it. And it just kind of was a progression from there. The interest kind of progressed, and eventually, after a few years of working as an engineer, I actually took as a 26-year-old, I took a sabbatical really, and I started to study finance and investments.
That's amazing.
And so it's been quite a journey, but that's the long and short of it.
Do you think that the engineer in you made you a better investor?
Absolutely, I do, yes. The skills you learn as an engineer, it's about problem solving, it's about thinking out the box, it's about optimization, all the things that investment managers speak about. So definitely, I think it equipped me with the tools I needed to kind of build, to help, to build the new road with Garth. And I think we do think about things differently in terms of what we're doing, what we're trying to bring to market. And so, yes, absolutely. I'm very grateful and I'm happy that I studied engineering first. I think it provided a very different foundation and a stronger foundation in terms of what I do now.
Ethan, growing up, what was your world like and what shaped who you've become today?
So for me, growing up, I was always very competitive. I happened to be in a very strong sporting school, both primary and high school, especially for my age groups. And I thought that it sort of enhanced my competitiveness. And I was always just a naturally competitive person. So I think from such a young age, I always just was competing with my mates and stuff. And I think that drove me, especially at a young age, to just better myself. And then probably when I grew a bit older and started realizing that I was actually a bit better than the average person, that I started to figure out why I do what I do. And I think it led back to my parents and like how much they did for me, especially growing up, and all the opportunities they gave me and stuff. And I just, later on, I realized that I just want to give back to them. I almost feel like I owe them something, even though I owe them nothing. I have a dream of like just handing them a check one day for X amount of money and just say, pack up the house, take the dogs with, travel the world, just do whatever you guys want. I realized as much as they want to provide me with the dreams that I want, I also want to give back to them and provide them with the dreams that they want. Even though I owe them nothing, it feels like it would make me happy to do that, to see them happy.
That was a beautiful answer, Ethan, and it explains why you are where you are today. So, Garth, would you mind sharing more about your family dynamic and your upbringing? Is there anything that you still carry with you today from it?
Yeah, sure. Grew up, wouldn't say chaos, but controlled chaos. I grew up as the youngest of 4 boys, but anybody that knows us was never just 4 boys. It was actually about 8 boys in the house, with friends that came to stay for an evening and ended up staying for 5 years. My house was always a safe haven. I think it's something my parents got from their grandparents or my grandparents. There was always space for one more. We may not have had a lot, but there was always enough. And no matter who you were, you always felt like you had a place there. I think that's something that I've taken through from that home life to my current family life. My wife's always like, another person, whenever we have a function or a bra, I'm like, no, come through. I'm that guy that, just invites people, and she's like, okay, we only have 24 plates, but we'll make a plan. But I think we'll even carry that through to the company. It's a place where I think I want everybody to feel that they're part and they belong. It's a massive thing for me, is that sense of belonging. I think it's a motivator. When people belong to something, they can relate to it, and you get the best out of them. So I think it's definitely, maybe to sum up, I felt like I belonged, and I've always been in an environment like that. No matter, and like you can imagine, my oldest brother sadly passed away at the beginning of the year. He was a provincial cricketer. My other brother Graham was called a springback like Ethan, but they called them, was a springback karate, karate, call him karate guy, Chuck Norris. No, I'm kidding. No, so if you go across, my dad also played rugby and cricket, and was did quite well there. I'm actually even named after sports people. All 4 of us, all 4 brothers are named after sports people, so it's a big thing. But even though I wasn't, call it the biggest sports person in the house, I still felt like I belonged in that family. It was cool for me. I was the guy behind the bowling machine, not in front of it, but that was cool. And I like that.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry to hear about your brother earlier this year. If I can speak from my own experience, is that you've always made any New Road employee, if I could say, as we feel like a family. So I think what you've had growing up, you've definitely implemented at New Road very well.
Thanks so much, Mix. It means a lot.
Paul, would you also mind please sharing some more about your upbringing and your family dynamic? And is there anything that you still carry with you today?
Yeah, Mix. I'm also actually one of 4, but I'm the oldest of 4, not the youngest of 4. So I grew up with 2 younger brothers and then my little sister, who obviously growing up with 3 brothers is quite tough. She doesn't take a lot of nonsense. But I had a happy childhood, happily married parents. There were 4 of us. So again, you had a very busy household, a lot going on at any one point in time. But being the oldest, you feel a sense of responsibility. I suppose whether it's warranted or not is a different story. But you feel a sense of responsibility for your younger siblings, and you want to do the best you can for them. And I do feel like that's sort of endowed me with some sort of leadership characteristics that I've taken into my adult life, and just trying to be there. Trying to. Sometimes you take a lot on your shoulders because of that. So happy childhood. I still have very good relationships with my whole family. Unfortunately, my younger brother also passed away a few years ago. But we're a happy, tight-knit and close family. And I cherish that, and I try and take that into my relationships with other people where I can.
Sorry to hear about that as well, Paul. And I think as well, like just the New Road team and the dynamic that we have, it's very special because we are a family away from our personal families. And that's something that for me has made a big difference in my life. Garth, at what point did New Road stop being a dream and actually become a direction that you wanted to follow?
Sure, Mix. It's always Steve Jobs said it's easy to connect the dots looking backwards. But I think the point would have been when the funds launched. It was the middle of COVID. That money went into the account. I think that's when I was like, this is real. Before it's been hypothetical. It's on paper. Everybody says it's over. In brackets, overnight success. You do something, you get to a point. But I think to actually have those tickets going live, the day that you can actually get the newspaper and see the name at the back there, all the other tickets running and things like that. So I think that's when it first really felt real to me. I would think that there's something,
And is there something that you wanted to do differently from everything else or everyone else in the industry that you'd seen prior?
I think it's maybe the motivating factor. It's something that, I don't know if we'll speak about it later on or not, but I think the differential was we tried to create something that we wanted to see in the industry. Paul and I come from a financial planning background. And, when we built New Road, we're looking, not to say like it's selfish, we want something for us, but we wanted something that we would invest our parents' money. And the solutions we looked at were there, but we couldn't relate to them in the same way. So I definitely think that's definitely one of the factors there.
And last one, what kind of company did you decide from day one that you never wanted New Road to be or to become?
I never wanted to be a place, like I said, I think we alluded to it a bit earlier. I never wanted New Road to become a business where the clients and the staff and the colleagues can't relate to or can't see themselves. Sometimes you can have a business and you can build things, and then you get to a point where you don't see yourself in it anymore. You've lost that. And I love the fact that I think it's something I actually chat to you guys and to Zans and the team. What I love about it is I want you guys, and in every contribution that comes through, it must be something you can see yourself in. And that's the fun part of the journey, is to look at little things, like whether it be the logo, or whether it be, you've had a mark on it, but more importantly that mark's still relevant and it still identifies with you. So I definitely don't want to become a place where I walk in one day and say, this doesn't feel like the spirit of us and the things that we've built. I think that's important, and things can get to that. You can get to a point as businesses get bigger, they form their own culture. But I definitely want a place, like I say, where everybody's included, can see themselves, and everybody feels that their contribution is seen.
That's beautiful, thank you. Paul, on to you. So CFA is one of the hardest qualifications that you could do in finance, and I just want you to explain, why did you put yourself through that?
So Mix, as I said, coming from an engineering background, for me it was quite a shift to get into investments and finance, and a lot of it is, the way sort of Garth and I came through the industry, coming from a financial planning background, a lot of it's self-taught, but for me it was really about, officially, you want that. I'm very curious, so when I find a subject interesting, I kind of get obsessively kind of locked into it, and I want to kind of understand it very well. And then also mastery, for me, kind of discovering investments as a passion a little bit later on, as a 20-something, for me it was about how do I turn this passion into, how do I master it? So it was really a combination, I'd say, of curiosity and mastery. But on top of that, a lot of what you learn, I suppose, in any subject is self-taught as well. The passion. If you're passionate about something, you're going to kind of learn a lot just by reading and doing. But really, the CFA was kind of just to kind of tick off that mastery, I suppose, and really fill out all the entire curiosity of the investment world for me. That's why I kind of persevered through it. But yeah, I enjoy studying, I enjoy learning. It's something, as I said, I still like maths, I like physics, and I like, I get fulfillment out of kind of trying to master those subjects. And CFA was just an obvious kind of a stepping stone for that as well.
And do you feel like that kind of commitment came at a cost?
Look, I mean, focus and commitment, I suppose, always comes at some cost. We're limited, and there's always a sacrifice somewhere. Whether it be your time with people. I like to think that I've managed those costs really well. Obviously, when you're studying, regardless of what it is, you have to sacrifice. You have to put in time. You have to put in commitment. I do tend to obsess over things, so I can be quite obsessive when I get my teeth stuck into something. But so I mean, it does, but I think you can, as long as you manage those costs. So in terms of, I think anything, when you want to focus on it, there's a time commitment, and I can be quite obsessive. So really, digging into something, it takes a lot of time. But I think if you manage those costs correctly, it's worth it. My wife, obviously, at the time, she was my girlfriend. When I was studying CFA, and she was there to support me, and she kind of knew what my goal was, and she's always stuck with me. And it's nice to be able to still have a very strong relationship with her, even though these things do take time. Is that you have that strong enough relationship to understand what it's about, and so I suppose with everything there are sacrifices you make, but I think they're worth it, for I suppose bigger goal.
And obviously going that CFA route took a lot of discipline. Do you feel that discipline has shown up in your investment process and how you run the funds at New Road?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think discipline is the cornerstone of success, really. I mean, you have to be able to focus on the time and effort that you put into something and be able to trust that process, and that's important. I think if you don't have the discipline, it's very hard to build the foundations necessary to achieve anything in life.
So I think we all have a dream, but there's a moment where that dream actually becomes a decision. So Ethan, on to you. When did the idea of becoming a Springbok actually feel real? Well, not the dream, the decision.
So for me, I think it was a lot later on in life. For me, I didn't get into any universities, which I now know was a blessing in disguise. So I went off to the Sharks Academy. I wasn't contracted. I just had a bursary to study while I was there. Whereas most of the guys who were somewhat professional at that time, they were getting paid. Luckily, I was good enough. I played Craven Week, so I could join them for their their training camps and stuff. I was able to play in the junior age groups with them, the under 20s, under 21, under 19 age groups. But even then, because I wasn't contracted, I had a long way to go. I didn't realize that Springbok dream was still so far away from me. But then by the end of the year, I think I just put up my hand for every chance that I got. So I feel like I performed as best as I could, and by the end of the year I had a contract. And by the end of the next year, I got that phone call to say, look, it was 11 o'clock at night, say, look, pack your bags, you're leaving the next day to fly to Joburg to start for the camp. And I think that was the moment I was taken aback. I wasn't even a starting player for the Sharks yet. So at that point, I was still like, okay, is it still 50-50? I hadn't really settled in yet. And then I think at that camp, a few of the coaches had spoken to me and sort of lined up the year, what it would look like and what they thought my future could be. And I think that's where it started to settle in, like this actually could be a reality for me.
And were there any moments that you actually doubted that it was possible?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think more moments doubting than I had realizing that I could do it. And I think those are the moments that you look back onto and that you're actually so grateful, because those are the moments that made you, get up in the morning and train and do a bit more, So like I said, I wasn't contracted for that first half of the year, and that whole year I spent just fighting, just doing whatever I could to make sure that I had a contract, because I had a bursary for, I think, 2 years to study. And after that, I was done. So I said, I'm going to give it everything for these 2 years. So I reckon for the half of the time, I was doubting myself. But I think when that contract finally came in, it started settling a bit.
During that 2-year period when you were waiting for your contract, what were you willing to give up for it, and what sort of sacrifices did you have to make?
Yeah, I think for that time where I didn't have a contract, it felt like my head was on a cutting board, and I knew it was like the end game. This is it. This is, I either make it or I don't. And I feel like there was nothing going on in my life. I was studying a pretty useless degree. I was staying at home. I wasn't really sure of my future. So I just told myself, this is it. I have 2 years to either make it or break it. Otherwise I'm off to the yachts or wherever you end up. And at that time I was sacrificing a lot. I mean, they don't look like sacrifices to me because it's just part of my life. But I mean, I missed that varsity life. I missed all the parties. I missed all the late nights, all that kind of stuff, because I was so obsessed with making a future for myself in rugby. And like I said, looking back now, it's worth every single second of it.
Absolutely, and we're glad that you stuck it through, because otherwise we wouldn't be sitting and having this conversation.
I'm a lot more glad than you guys.
Well done to you,
Thank
Ethan. What we've spoken about today is the dream, the environment, the decisions that it took you all to get there. So thank you for that. In the next conversation, we want to go deeper into the early days, the pressure, and the parts of the journey that no one really talks about. So thank you all for today. Remember to like and subscribe, guys, and stay tuned for our next episode with Ethan and the co-founders of New Road.